Something I think is very, very important in the world of gaming journalism, or in something like this, whatever you want to call my YouTube thing, it's being able to confess your own bias. Being able to take a step back and analyze your own life and realize that there is definitely stuff that influences our outlook. And today, I want to talk about this topic, but I am going to be very, very biased. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and we're going to be talking today about the World Health Organization officially declaring gaming addiction as a disease, something that needs to be isolated, studied, and controlled. Now, the reason I'm not really a big fan of this is because I have unfortunately seen a lot of addiction. My mom, when I was growing up, was very, very addicted to speed. She would stay awake for literally days at a time, hallucinate, wake me up by yelling at me when I was a little tiny child. It was very, very unfortunate and definitely didn't lead to the best time. And then as an adult, my little brother unfortunately kind of walked down the same path and got addicted to meth, stole cars, that kind of thing, and now I haven't seen my little brother in many, many years as well. It's unfortunate, but it's very much, well, it's influenced how I see the word addiction. In my opinion, most of the time when I hear the addiction words, I think about chemical addictions. People who are waking up and completely influenced by the pursuit of the drug. And that is why I don't really like the idea of gaming being considered an addiction. There are definitely people out there who do not have any sort of personal control. There are people who are playing Fortnite every single day, and you may laugh at it, but they've completely destroyed their lives for it. They've lost friends, they've lost family, they've lost wives, all to try and get that next big kill. That's probably going to sound absolutely crazy to some people, but gaming addiction on some level absolutely exists, and I'm not actually trying to diminish anybody's struggle with it. But to me, I feel like there is a clear distinction between what I call impulse addiction and chemical addiction. There are those who wake up every single morning to drink like a huge amount of alcohol. This is what they use as a crutch just to function. Separately though, impulse controls addictions are things that are more about you being unable to really determine your own behavior in a smart fashion. Just as a random example, many years ago, I guess this was about 10 years back, I knew a guy who lived in a tiny little apartment next to the mall and owned hundreds of swords, some of them costing thousands of dollars. The guy had pretty much run himself completely bankrupt, made every single credit card fully maxed out for stupid samurai swords, katanas and stuff that were replicas and some very, very authentic looking, but for whatever reason, he just thought that the most important thing in the world was this sword collection. I don't know if he was trying to sell them or if they had some weird personal appeal to him, but it was very clearly destroying his life. At this point, I'm pretty sure that guy died by now just because all he was eating was ramen and living in this creepy apartment filled with every single sword you could imagine. And I think that impulse control addictions, while very valid, are separate from things like chemical addictions. Now, I want to talk a lot about gaming addiction because, well, that's the big topic of the day, but also, of course, I'm going to be biased because I play video games all day, every day. Yesterday, I played for like 14 hours straight because I woke up, I played some Super Nintendo, then I ended up playing some Dead Rising, and then me and my fiance played Warhammer Chaos Bane for like 12 hours straight to beat it because I'm going to be doing a big review on that Friday. And it was a blast. I mean, we were having this super cool adventure and we didn't want to put the controllers down. It was our entire day was super fun. Is that gaming addiction? No. Now, something I am very thankful for is the World Health Organization has actually created a very specific definition as to what gaming addiction as a disease is. They've technically upgraded it because last year it was just considered, well, it was just considered basically a disorder, and they've upgraded it to disease, and when they did this, they changed its classification. The official definition now is basically this: any behavior involving gaming addiction that actually influences day-to-day behavior in a negative way, actually takes away from your personal relationships, and lasts more than a year. Now, that final sentence of their classification, I think, is probably the most important because A, it shows that your impulse addictions are completely outside your control now, and separately, I think that it's important to try and distinctly show the fact separately that gaming addiction is a long-term problem. If you actually are addicted to video games, getting help is difficult because right now, especially in America, it's just kind of laughed at. The idea of being able to prioritize video games over everything else is kind of a shock. Whereas in other places like Korea, they've actually had rehab clinics for gaming addiction for years and years. But that 12-year specification, I think, is important because it basically shows that there's a difference between loving a game, becoming invested in a game, and destroying your life for a game. Something I can still remember so vividly from the era of like 2005, 2006 was the huge rash of people who were getting completely and overwhelmingly addicted to World of Warcraft. At one point, it was actually one of the top reasons for divorce. And it was funny because within the universe of World of Warcraft, all the people that were playing at the time, myself included, it was kind of just a big joke. People would actually call the people who were destroying their lives to play the game no-lifers. The fact that it was just such an understood and just common phenomena at the time was a very scary sign, but it was also something that everybody just kind of accepted. Now, I want to say that I am hoping that this leads to good things. Now, the main reason that the World Health Organization is very realistically creating these distinctions is not for political reasons. They're not doing this to try and get additional funding. They're doing it because a lot of times scientific organizations can only get funding to do further study on stuff once they've officially declared that something is happening. I mean, like, think about all the global sciences that are happening. Like, NASA can't study a planet until they've officially named it. Global warming is a big issue, and people are always afraid to talk about it because everybody wants to try and change terms of climate change and all that. So I think that the main reason that they're saying this is because they're trying their very, very best to say, okay, gaming addiction is a disease because we need to study it. We need to figure out how this is happening. Are people with addictive personalities more prone to it? Are there particular games that are more addictive? Are there certain ones that are actually abusive? Are loot crates going to become so addictive that even a millionaire could go broke playing it? I think that these are questions that absolutely do need to be studied. I'm not thrilled about the classification, and I do think that in some cases it will be applied inaccurately, but simultaneously, this science is very, very important. We're probably going to get a deeper look at gamer psychology than has ever existed before, because we're going to get actual proper government funding to look into our literal brains, to see why is it that a game can be fun? Why is it that a controller can sometimes be so hard to put down? Why is it that when I'm just trying to play some Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP, well, why is it that that can be more fun than just going outside? Our natural instincts should be to run and hunt and play and try and chase that cute girl. But at the end of the day, a lot of times, I'd rather just play on my Darth Vader PSP. This is not a question with a clear answer. It is a complicated topic, and that's why I want to try and talk about it today, is because I'm not mad, I'm not disappointed, but I do hope that this manages to advance the conversation instead of just putting poor kids that are playing too much Fortnite into mental hospitals. I don't want to see over-treatment. I want to see kids specifically getting the help they need, and adults that are crumbling their lives finding a bridge to fix things themselves. Impulse addiction, despite the fact that I am considering it a very different thing from chemical addiction, is still a very real problem. It is a physical issue that is still controlling people's lives, even if it's not technically the way you think about it. I'm glad that this is happening, but simultaneously I am still just a tiny bit nervous. But what do you think about it? Are you somebody who's very, very against the idea of gaming addiction as a term like I am? Or are you somebody who's on board? Have you ever known anybody who had a gaming addiction? And have you ever had a gaming addiction yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And also, give this video a big like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep keep dreaming. You know, just kind of thinking about it, it seems like online games are like 80 times more addictive than offline games. I've known people who played a lot of Skyrim, but it seems like something about having the ability to pause completely changes the dynamic on how we interact with stuff. I hope they study stuff like that. The people who can't stop playing World of Warcraft simply because it feels like the world will go on without them. You know, personally, I'm probably going to read all these studies myself just because I'm curious. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.